Hello everyone. The topic for my thesis is framework for crawling and local event detection using Twitter data. I'll start by explaining what is Twitter. Twitter is a popular social media web service which has millions of users around the world. Uh, Typically, users post short messages up to 140 characters. Twitter imposes this limit of 140 characters. Um, when a user logs in, he sees the messages from other users whom this user follows. Uh, as you can see, a typical user sees such a screen on his browser once he logs in. Twitter hosts a substantial amount of user contributed data. Total number of Twitter users is ever increasing. It's over 190 million as of January 2011. Also, the number of tweets is over 90 million tweets per day, and it's over 300 billion tweets till now. Users fill out their profile when they create their account, and in this account they put information like their location, description of biodata, etc. Twitter provides an easy method of accessing this data via HTTP requests. So we are going to use that in order to collect this data. And should I just wait or after that?
I think we should probably just officially start now, and I'm sure Professor Trapi will come in soon.
Okay.
Or do you want to say a few words since
Yes.
you've been mostly advising Rishi?
Yes, let me introduce 1 second.
You're so tall.
Yeah, now I stood up, now people realize I'm tall. Rishikesh Bakshi did his master's thesis on looking at Twitter and looking at the patterns of activity that we can examine and look at when we have a lot of data from various geographical locations. Rishi, defending his master's thesis, he was officially supervised by Marco. Unofficially by me.
So I explained what Twitter is. Now I will explain the motivation for my thesis topic. So using Twitter data, we can understand activities and interests in a lot of communities and societies around the world. Twitter users come from every country in the world which has internet access. Using Twitter data, we can show patterns around the world depending on location. So for every location, we can show what pattern of Twitter activity takes place over there. We can show similarities and differences between the activity patterns for different locations using Twitter data. So this is another use case for crawling Twitter data. Using this data, we can detect events depending on location and time of the day. For every location, we can detect what event took place at a certain time using this data. Another use can be showing trends. So using Twitter data, we can detect what are the topmost trends during that time, depending on location and time. So these trends can be used by journalists and in order to detect what events are taking place at their location. So this was the motivation for my thesis topic. We use Twitter API in order to collect the data. The details of the API are in the thesis. We use the search API to collect data. Now I will give an overview of how we...
I have a question. Did you tweet to all your friends that you're defending?
No,
you have a Twitter account?
I do, but I will tweet once if I defend successfully.
Ah, so you're selectively tweeting.
Yeah. So I'll give an overview of how we collected this Twitter data. I will start by explaining the architecture of our crawler. So Twitter provides an API to access the data of users. You can filter this data by using parameters for queries to the API. All of this data is available through the internet. Through the internet, we made HTTP requests using the crawler. So the crawler made queries to the Twitter API. This crawler was run on our Rutgers University's web servers. Using the crawler manager, the queries were generated. So the the crawler manager did was created queries by accessing the database. The database had lists of location for which the data was to be collected, and also a list of keywords for which the data was to be collected. So what the crawler manager did was access database, check what locations to be crawled, and then create queries, and then the crawler would generate the actual requests to the API and collect data. We also created a web interface in order to add or manage locations to be crawled, and also add and manage keywords to be crawled. So you could easily specify what location was to be crawled and what keywords were to be crawled.
So where is what? Why do you like link the web interface to the internet and the database to the crawler? I'm just trying to understand.
So through the web interface was accessible through the internet, and also the crawler and the crawler manager the crawler was connected to the internet and made the actual requests, and the access to the database was through the crawler manager.
Okay, so you were sitting at the web interface and accessing the crawler and some other machine through the internet.
The crawler and crawler manager are scripts on a server which are running on our
Well, that's just like, it's not important for you. It's important is that there's between something on one side and the internet, there's a Twitter. I guess that's what you're trying to sort of say.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yes.
Unless I don't understand something.
Yes, so the only point of the internet was showing that Twitter is accessible through the internet, and also our web interface is accessible through the internet.
We should probably say web client. So that,
Yeah,
internet
like
client.
many people can access whatever,
Yes.
some central server through internet also.
Yes,
That's what you're saying.
yes,
Okay. So some of the people that tweet, they could also be accessing the crawler
yes,
and changing the database or something.
yes. So they can add or manage if they know the URL of our web client, they can access our database.
So there could be a feedback by the data analysis could tweet the results.
Yes.
So,
So this is I have explained the exact architecture in detail in the thesis. I will skip this slide because we don't have too much time, but I have explained the actual architecture in detail. Now I will explain the interface, web interface.
So is this architecture any different from a typical crawler, kind of like people crawl for various reasons, right? So is there something
Yes.
very different about what you're doing?
Generally, when people crawl, they write just scripts. They don't have a web interface, maybe.
Okay, so the web interface is more like it's accessing your database, like the database you're storing your crawl results.
Yes. Yes, you can view what data was collected, also for which locations
Okay.
the data was collected. I'll just come to the interface in the next slide. So this was our web interface as shown in the slide. You could, when you tried to add a location, it showed a map in order to select the area for which the data was to be collected. Also, we had keyword-based crawls. Using the crawler, we made sure that we collected as much data as possible from Twitter. The actual process is explained in detail in the thesis. So data was collected in all 55 locations across the United States and Europe. We collected in all over 28 million tweets per month. So this is across all locations. The average size of data per month was over 11 gigabytes. So a lot of data was collected. Now we'll take a look at activities in cities. So using this data, we took a look at activity patterns in all the locations for which we collected data, and also we compared activity based on time and location. I'll start with the first. So this slide shows mean tweet rate per day in different cities. So on the y-axis it shows the Twitter rate per day, and on the x-axis it shows different cities. You can see that there is a large difference in between New York and the rest of the locations. New York City has a lot of Twitter users, and the tweet rate is really high.
Did you normalize by the number of people living?
We did, but in this slide it's not shown. This slide just shows the overall Twitter rate.
It's like in Paris, they don't like to
In Paris,
Yes.
strangely so.
I don't know, is Paris
Maybe-
about the same as London?
The normalized one is in the thesis, right?
Yes, the normalized one is in the thesis.
I think San Francisco is actually higher, right, when you normalize than New York.
Yes.
Yes, San
Yes.
Francisco people like to take it.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think New York City, some of the adjacent locations like Jersey City, those tweets also sometimes come inside the same area, because it's not exact. The area is not exact. It's according to the data in the user's profile, so it might have some data from surrounding areas as well. This is also a simple slide which shows the graph of mean Twitter rate for weekdays across 4 cities. You can see that the general pattern in all 4 cities is similar, though because the volume in New York is very high, the graph looks a bit different, but the general pattern is the same across all 4 cities. The x-axis shows local time in each city, so we have shifted the graphs according to local time for each city, and the y-axis shows tweets per 15 minutes. We chose this tweets per 15 minutes rate in order to show that in order to make the graph less spiky, so that it didn't have too many spikes. Now I will come on to the second point, comparison of activity based on time and location. So in this slide, I have normalized the rate at New York and Sacramento. The rate at New York is almost 100 times more than the Twitter rate at Sacramento. But once I normalized it over for both cities, you can see that the graph is very similar for both of the cities. Here as well, I have shifted the graphs according to local time, so both of the graphs are according to local points. This graph shows that there are some cultural similarities, means there are similarities in the graph even though there is a time difference in between these two locations. The general pattern is exactly similar. Both of them have the lowest point at around 5:45 am and the peak at around 10 pm. So we can see that there are.
Why is the time difference important?
So the time difference might mean that these two cities have some cultural differences that people might be.
You mean like just, what is it, 15 minutes?
No, the time difference actually is 3 hours, but I have shifted it accordingly.
We're talking about the time zone.
Yeah, so why is it, that's why I'm asking, why does it matter the time difference?
We were trying to see if it matters, if there is some difference, even.
It does matter.
Yeah, so it depends on the city. It doesn't always matter. In the next slide, we see there are certain differences as well, even though. So we plotted the graphs for mean rate at New York City and Washington DC. These two cities are in the same time zone. But the graphs are a little bit different. So we can see that the peak in Washington is at around 11 a.m. For earlier, and peak in New York is later in the night at around 10:15 p.m. So even though these are in the same time zone, you can see that there are certain cultural differences. This graph might be showing that Washington DC, in Washington DC, the people wake up earlier and go to sleep earlier, and it's the opposite in New York City. So this might indicate certain cultural differences between these two cities.
So the normalized tweet rate is tweets per 15 minutes per person in the city.
Divided by volume of the total, divided by volume of New York, and then for Washington it's divided by volume for Washington.
For the total number of tweets you saw in
Yes.
New York.
Because there is a large difference in between the volume of Washington and New York, we had to normalize in order to actually compare these two cities. So we saw that there are differences and similarities between different locations. There are also similarities and there are some differences in between day of the week for the same location as well. So according to the time of the day and day of the week, there are certain differences in between the patterns. So for New York City on weekdays, we see that people tend to start tweeting earlier in the day and they tweet more during the night. On weekends, there's people start tweeting later in the day and they do not tweet more during the night as well. So the overall Twitter rate is higher during the weekdays as opposed to weekends. I'll move over to the next slide. So what about a single day? So we plotted for a single day the rate of tweets and then compared it to the sum of average and standard deviation. We also compared for a period of time rate against average plus 0.5 standard deviation, 1.5 standard deviation, and so on, in order to check how it matches up with rate during the day. And we found that average plus standard deviation was ideal for this. Now we can see that if the rate during a day exceeds the sum of average and standard deviation, it can mean that there is a certain burst in the volume of that location. And this brings me to the next slide, which is burst detection in the volume in the Twitter data. So I'll come over to the third part. So using the slides shown earlier, we can find outliers in the data by checking if the data at any point exceeds the average and standard deviation. If it does exceed, that means that the point is an outlier.
So when you say rate, what do you mean by rate?
So number of tweets per 15 minutes, that I defined as rate.
When you say average, is that the average of that rate?
Yes, the average is the average of number of tweets per 15 minutes for that time period over all weeks. So the average is over all weeks for which we collected data.
Okay, and the rate is for a certain week.
For certain
Yes,
data.
yes, a certain week.
So you're just giving an example where you're saying that the average plus standard deviation is significantly more than a specific day.
Yes, this was just an example, but I was trying to say
That's not
that.
clear from your slide. That's what I was wondering.
Okay.
So you're saying, well, this day wasn't, and there's some days when there's a.
Yes, we will see there are some in the next few slides. We will see that there will be some days for which the rate of tweets exceeds the average and standard, the sum of average and standard deviation of rate of tweets.
Do you have an illustration of that?
Yes, I will be coming to it in the next slide. So this one shows a similar date for which the average did not exceed, the rate did not exceed average, the sum of average and standard deviation. But this is for September 12th, and the next slide is for September 13th. For this slide, we can see that during the night time period, the rate exceeded the sum of average and standard deviation by a large margin. We saw the top keywords in this particular time period, and we found that the burst was due to an event called the VMA Awards. These are the Video Music Awards, which was broadcasted on television, and that was the reason for this sudden burst in data. So we can detect large-scale events using such technique, and if there is a burst, we can check for keywords to detect what event took place during that time period. So this graph shows the two dates for which we just saw the graphs and how much they differed from the mean during each time period. So you can see there is a huge increase at the night time period, which exceeded average and standard deviation. But we found that there were a few problems with this approach. So not all locations have enough volume in order to implement this. So even a small increase in those locations would have completely would have been detected by this technique. So we can't use this technique for the locations which do not have enough Twitter volume. Another problem with this approach is that the technique is too dependent on the overall volume. So if the overall volume does not increase, we won't be able to detect any event. And so every new term does not cause such a significant change in volume. So if a new term, so if there is an event taking place, but it does not cause a significant change in overall volume, we will not be able to detect this event.
But
So-
this is just like, did you do some qualitative or quantitative studies? Did you propose some algorithms, or, I mean,
So
what you're saying is just sort of qualitative.
So we we have another approach to detecting events, which I will explain.
So I'm not even sure when you say with this approach, what do you mean by this approach? I mean, there's a change detection. What kind of detection technique did you use?
We saw how far away was the rate of tweets during a particular time period from the sum of average and standard deviation. We tried it for different multiples of standard deviation in order to check whether it is able to detect smaller events as well.
So there's some threshold, and then do you normalize the threshold by the volume? You know, those
Yes.
types of questions.
So we did. So for every day of for every month, we saw the average volume of tweets, and we did normalize over that volume for every month, and we tried to plot it for different multiples of standard deviation in order to check if we detect events correctly. Some of the events we checked that we knew they occurred, but those were not detected using this technique. That is why we did not use this technique. So this brings me to the second approach of detecting trends, which was using the text of the tweets in order to detect for bursts and trends. So the basic idea is to index the tweets, the text of tweets, and for every term calculate a score, and then find top keywords in tweets according to location and time of the day. So in this approach we'll be using the terms in the text instead of using the volume or rate of tweets. So in this approach, the first step is indexing tweets across locations and time, group the data according to location, and day of the week. The second step is scoring terms in the data. So by scoring terms, I mean for every term calculate a score and then rank the terms, sort the terms, and then the top terms would be the trends in our database. So for each time period and location, we will be doing these 3 steps. So the first step is indexing tweets. We index tweets for 60 minutes chunks for each location. So there was a separate index for each location and a separate index for each day of the week. We saw a few slides ago that even the day of the week affected the rate of tweets and volume of tweets. So we had a separate index for the day of the week, like Monday, Tuesday, each one had a separate index. And each hour of Twitter data in our database was a different document in the index. We tried using different time periods like 15 minutes and one whole day, but we found that the best possible time period would be each hour in order to detect trends. In order to identify buzz, we calculated scores for each terms. The metrics which we used for calculating that scores were term frequency. By term frequency, I mean the number of times a term was found in a time period for a particular location. The second metric was average term frequency. So average term frequency is the term frequency of a term averaged over all weeks for which we collected data. Then we used the standard deviation of term frequency. So this is the standard deviation of term frequency across all weeks for a particular location. Another metric which we tried to use was inverse document frequency. So inverse document frequency is the log of total number of documents divided by 1 plus the number of documents in which this term was found. But we found that we did not have enough number of weeks documents. So what we after analyzing, we found that we were not able to use the final metric.
So your document is at week? Like what's
Each
one-
document is 1 hour of one location for a particular week.
As you go to do like online, you're sort of scanning and then you're saying, oh, there's something funny. Or is it like you're looking at some historical data and then you're finding where the...
We were looking at historical data. We were trying to find a technique in order to detect scores. So we thought of looking at historical data and the data for which we knew certain events took place. So instead of doing it real time, we first tried to do it for historic data.
But given the historical data, if you already calculated all the different metrics,
Yes.
you can then decide.
Yes, using historical data, we can then run it live on the data which is occurring in real time.
So you're sort of like doing some sort of training.
Yes. So this is the first score which we calculated, deviation score. Here we took the difference between mean and term frequency and divided it by standard deviation of term frequency. So this score, what this score symbolizes is how far from the mean and standard deviation is the frequency of a term. So if a term occurs very rarely, it will have a higher score, and if it occurs more number of times in that time period, it will have a higher score. We found that this score is highly sensitive to rarely occurring terms. So for example, a term which has never occurred in any of the weeks in our data, it will have a very high score. It detects these rare terms which have an increase in term frequency. So if there is a sudden increase in term frequency, then it will have higher score. Also, we found that there were some terms which were noise, which were something like spelling mistakes or the name of a new Twitter user. But these terms had a lower volume. So in order to exclude them from our results, we set a lower threshold to the term frequency. But even though we found that some of the important events did not get a higher score, even if they had a high term frequency, because they were not rare enough, they did not have a higher score using this technique. So then we used another technique score. So this we termed it as volume deviation score. Here what we did was multiplied the log of term frequency with the difference between mean and term frequency and divided it by standard deviation. So in this there is an additional weight to the term frequency, so that the terms which have higher frequency get more weightage and not just rare terms. So this technique is more sensitive to terms with higher frequency. So if a certain term has a high number of feeds in a certain period and it is also somewhat rare, then it will be detected. It is less sensitive to unusual terms like spelling mistakes or new Twitter users which have lower term frequency. So using this technique, we then calculated our results. We calculated scores for each term during March in New York, and we used the second score, which was volume deviation score. We scored each term for each time period, and then we took the top 100 keywords. These keywords we classified in different categories in order to analyze the type of events which we detected. So these are certain sample trends in our top keywords. So you can see that the third term, which is Guru, was a local news. It was about a rapper getting into a hospital. So you can term it as a local news for New York. The last three terms were related to the Oscars ceremony in March. So those can be termed as global broadcast events in our dataset. The first two terms are something called Twitter memes. Twitter memes are certain phrases which get popular on Twitter. Certain users use them in a sentence and then they get used by their followers and so on, and it goes viral. So as these terms are new, they get detected by our techniques. They have been never occurred before in our data set, so they have a higher score. So we classified our keywords, our top 100 keywords for March into type of event. So the first first type was broadcast media reactions. These events were reactions to something occurring on TV, for example, award ceremonies or sports matches. Then the second one was non-broadcast global events. So something like meetings taking place or certain function which was not broadcast on TV, but it was globally important. The third type was participatory physical events. So these were marches or meetings in which these were not broadcast or these were the ones which people participated themselves and tweeted about it. The fourth category is memes and retweets. So as you saw in the previous slide, there were certain memes. Then retweets there are certain celebrities on Twitter whom a lot of people follow. So if they tweet a certain term, it gets retweeted and by their followers. That is, they also post the same tweet and so on, and it gets really popular on Twitter. So out of our 100 keywords, 43 of them were memes and retweets. Now, after getting these results,
So this is out of 100?
yes.
Where are the rest?
So some of the terms would not could not be classified in these 4 types of events. So
Were they some of them non-events, or were they all?
so they were not memes or retweets. So those terms were something like some keywords related to. So they were neither memes or retweets. That is, they become they were used in sentences by people, but they were not really memes, like things white people say, something like that, which were not really memes or retweets, but they had a high number of tweets in our database.
So how does your software distinguish between these? Like,
So
how did you
we-
categorize these into?
We calculated these manually. We did not have a technique to classify them automatically using software. We would like to do that later, but we did not implement that technique.
So basically, you yourself think that it falls into some category, and so
Yes.
seeing the data you have.
Yes. So this was manually done on the basis of we checked in the news what type of term it was, and then classified it accordingly.
So you did manual classification?
Yes, for the 100
For
terms.
these 100 terms.
We wanted to check what types of trends are detected in our data set.
How
Uh,
big was the data set?
So in all, we detected 5 events per hour for the whole month of March, and then took the top 100 keywords. So the in all, we detected over 4,000 terms, but we classified it for the top 100 keywords just to check.
So it wasn't really purely manual? I mean,
Yeah.
you found the keywords, then you went through the...
Yes, we found the top keywords, and then we classified the classification we did manually. That's all.
But since then, we have extracted features for these different data and the preparation of it automatically. It's automatic classification.
Are you gonna talk about that?
Since then, meaning after we finish it.
Oh, really?
So I can send you the paper. But I don't think so.
Some of your PhD students?
Yeah.
So in order to evaluate the trends detected, we compared it with Twitter trends. So Twitter creates a list of trends which are high frequency terms which occur in their data set, and they make it available through the API. We collected these terms for the month of March. In all, they had over 4,000 terms for the month of March, and so we also took the 100 trends, random 100 trends from Twitter's trends as well, and then we compared it with our results in order to evaluate what type of events are detected by our technique and what kind of events are detected by Twitter's techniques.
Do we know how those work?
We do not know exactly. Initially, it used to be frequency of terms. Now they use now they do not use just frequency, but we do not know exactly how they calculate their trends. They have not made it public. So we selected 100 trends from our technique, and then 100 trends from Twitter's trends, and then we classified these trends for both sources into categories and dimensions of events, and then we evaluated our results in what type of events are detected by both techniques. So this is the first slide which shows certain categories. So the exogenous trends are the trends which are originating outside Twitter, and the endogenous trends are those originating inside Twitter. So for example, certain memes are related to only Twitter, so they have no meaning outside of the Twitter network. It might mean that certain celebrity tweeted something and it got retweeted, and that's why it became popular. So it does not have any meaning outside Twitter. Exogenous trends are the ones which are real events or certain certain sports match or academy, certain event which took place outside of Twitter. So in our terms, there are 56 outside Twitter and 44 inside Twitter. While in Twitter's dataset, we found that 69 events were related to something outside of Twitter. Then we classified the events detected in terms of planned events and emerging events. So certain events were breaking news. For example, change in weather can be said to be emerging events sometimes, or the death of a celebrity can be an emerging event. So in our data set, we found that 24 of the events were planned and 7 events were emerging. The rest of them did not come in both of these categories. They were something else. In Twitter's data set, we found that 37 events were planned and 6 were emerging events.
So I don't get a feel of what it means. Like, so you're saying that in your case you had 24 planned events and Twitter had 37. Like, does that mean that both the methodologies are equally good? Is the difference of 13 a big deal? Is it not a big deal?
So yes, because there are just 100 overall keywords, you can say that 13 is a big difference in terms of keywords.
Is it good that is Twitter detecting certain events to be planned when they are not planned, or like what's happening?
They have more events in all. So for outside Twitter, so you can see that they are almost the same in terms of the ratio of events detected. So this was just to check what type of events are getting detected. So we can see that both of the techniques are detecting these events successfully. Then the next point is the categories breaking news and expected news.
Which are other things that we're interested in more than others? Like ideally.
So we are more we want to detect emerging events more, because those are the trends which we are planning to detect. Like because we are trying to detect events, planned events, emerging events are more important than the planned events for us. And then there is so the next one is breaking news versus expected news. So breaking news is certain things like an emergency or something like that. Expected news is something like the president's address to the nation, or certain news which we know in advance is going to occur. So the next category is broadcast media events. So these events are telecasted on the TV, and we found that our analysis, our technique generated 22 such events, and Twitter's technique generated 15 events of this category. Then another method which we used was global event versus local event. So local events are related to the location, and they do not have any meaning outside that location. So for a particular city, if certain event occurs related only to that city, then it can be called local event. For example, snow can be termed local if it occurs only in that area, and otherwise the rest of the events like sports games or president's address can be termed as global events. They occur across a huge area.
Go back to so the take. Is the takeaway that the breakdown is similar, which means that what does it mean? But
Yes, the breakdown is similar in terms of events detected for both techniques. We found that both techniques are detecting similar kind of events, but our technique had more of broadcast media events than Twitter's technique, while Twitter had more of planned events than our technique. So that can be a difference takeaway between these two techniques. So our method is more successful in detecting broadcast media events, while Twitter's technique is successful in detecting planned events.
So there must be a difference in the way these trends emerge, like these different categories of trends, like I'm just guessing, I don't know. Like if you plot it, trend versus time, time on the x-axis and how the trend emerges. Is there a difference in the plots you see for planned events versus say expected news or breaking news? Like you're just using a single metric for all what you're doing here, but
Yes.
of course different trends are being, the metric is treating them differently, so to say, right? Or maybe Twitter is using a different metric, and some metrics respond better to certain kinds of events.
Right.
I don't have much intuition about the metric, especially the log,
Right.
the weighting with the log. It's like it's not very clear what's happening there. But
Yes. So we did not plot trends for Twitter's data for their trends. We did classify our events and plotted for our terms. For Twitter's terms, we do not know exact technique, so we did not try to analyze what trends they have.
so my question was that you're saying that you are doing a better job at a certain thing, a certain kind of event. That's fine. That's
Yes.
mostly based on your comparison with Twitter. What I'm saying is there something implicit in your metric that makes it do a better job at those events? Like, is there something different about those events that you are detecting better? Like,
So because we are having a weight of term frequency, overall number of tweets,
okay,
if the overall tweets are higher, we are detecting them better as opposed to Twitter. Uh, but in terms of planned events, they have more number of terms. I'm not sure why exactly, but their data set had more number of planned events.
Saying, I think he's asking, well, could be that it's the characteristics of the
Technique.
different turns, the features of those different types of trends that cause them to be detected or not detected by us or by Twitter.
Yes, yes, yes. That can be implemented and checked to see why this term got detected by our technique and not detected by Twitter. So summarizing, we created an easy to use tool in order to collect data. So researchers can use this their client to add new keywords or locations and then collect data for them easily and download it. And the second point is we created this framework to detect trends in Twitter data based on location and time. So we can show a list of these trends, and these trends can be used by journalists or other people to check what is going on in their area. So we can use this framework to detect real world events only, and then the future work would be refining these results to neglect the fourth category in our results, which was retweets and memes. And also you can use this framework to create certain real world applications. For example, you can create an emergency alert system, so we can put certain keywords and try to match them with the trends which we detected, and then try to see if there is a certain emergency in that area using Twitter. So that's it. Thank you for attending, and please ask questions.